Welcome, I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. Later in the program, we'll talk to Linda Gordman about some Obamacare issues here in the state of Colorado. But coming up this fall, there's all sorts of things to vote on, and a lot of those important state seats, you don't know those folks. They're not running for governor or senator. One of those important seats is the attorney general seat. Don Quick is running for the Democratic side of the state AG, who's now Jon Souther's seat.
Yes,
Don, good to see you again.
Nice to see you too, John. Thanks for having me on the show.
Now, you've been the DA for Adams County and Broomfield County, and you were term limited.
That's right. And before that, I was the chief deputy at the Attorney General's office under Ken Salazar.
All right, so you've been a legal beagle for a long time.
Yes.
So in other words, you really can't handle a private sector job.
Apparently I can't, no.
Yeah. Let's start off from the large part. The AG's office is a really crucial office that most people don't really follow because it's not always a policy-making position, but you're basically the state's attorney if you win this position.
Yes.
Why do you want the job?
You know, it's a great question. And for me, I was able to see firsthand the impact that the Attorney General can have on people's lives, whether it's public safety. We were the Attorney General when Columbine occurred, and so we created Safe to Tell and Safe Communities and other initiatives. Also, you get to protect the environment in Colorado, and we live in one of those beautiful places on earth. And also, you try to be constructive right now, when it's in a time in politics, John, is not our most constructive time of different people from different parties getting together. And so for all those reasons, I think the Attorney General's a great job.
And outside of governor, there are a few statewide state seats.
Yes.
AG, Secretary of State, Treasurer.
That's it.
And so there's those four seats. And while those are partisan seats, if done right, a lot of them, it's just getting the job done.
That's right.
Right. Would you agree with that?
Agree with it 100%. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the current AG, Jon Souther's, and the work he's done. Very well respected guy. He wants to be now mayor of Colorado Springs. You know, AG is supposed to stand for aspiring governor, not aspiring mayor. But we'll keep going.
Yes.
One of the things that was interesting with Souther's is that after these gun laws passed, and I've never seen this before, rarely seen this, the governor said, I need you to tell me what these laws do.
Right.
From my point of view, these laws were so recklessly written, they needed technical guidance.
Yes.
All right. When you become AG, do you change the technical guidance that Jon Souther's has done on those gun laws? No,
I don't. And I think that, you may disagree philosophically sometimes with the prior Attorney General, but the answer to your question about does the role of saying, what does this phrase mean in the context of previous statutes? What does this phrase mean under different case opinions that were before this one? Those kinds of roles, I think, stay exactly the same. And I think that you'll find that very few times, very isolated times, are there attorney generals that don't take that position of, here, let me explain to you the law based on what we know so far.
Have you ever heard, how often does this happen? Hey, we just passed a bill. Could you explain what it means? Will you be doing a lot of technical guidance?
Only when asked, and often, John, they ask before the bill is passed. I mean, that was one of the things when I was the chief deputy at the AG's office, or before that, the chief prosecutor. I'd get called over by the legislators or by legislative counsel, the lawyers that worked for the legislature, and to ask, what do you think of this language? How does this language shape out? So often that question is asked before the bill is passed. It's more unusual to have those kind of questions afterwards, but it does happen.
All right. Do you have a policy? I mean, I want to know, because if we have more of these type of bills, what happens on technical guidance?
Yeah, it depends on what exactly is being asked. Is it a simple phrase, or there's the thing called the Attorney General's opinion, an AGO, and that's when there's a formal request by a branch of government or somebody in government to say, Attorney General, give me your opinion. I know you're not a judge, but before I figure out if I want to do this and maybe end up in court, give me your opinion, what you think of this. Is it legal? Is it not legal? What does it mean?
Jon Souther's also found himself smack dab in the gay marriage debate.
Yes.
And I talking with him, he knows where history is taking this issue. His point of view is, wait, the Colorado Constitution says it's a man and a woman, and therefore I have a responsibility to defend that. If you were in his shoes, how would you have handled that?
It's John. I've said this publicly, is that I don't think there's any equal protection argument. There's not a constitutional basis to defend the Colorado same-sex marriage ban. And we've had 27 opinions in a row about it. In fact, today's the last one, 28 out of the federal court in 7th Circuit in Indiana that John joined a couple of weeks ago for that opinion. So my personal belief, this is one of those rare instances where there is no constitutional basis to defend this. And that happened only once before in my 26 years of defending. As a prosecutor, I've been defending laws for 26 years, and that was with the redistricting in 2003. And the Supreme Court of Colorado at that time, when Ken said, I think I want to challenge this law, said, when an attorney general thinks a bill has or a law has grave doubts of constitutionality, it's both consistent with his ethical obligations and his oath of office to challenge it. So you have to be very careful and not do it very often, which it shouldn't happen when an attorney general says there's no basis for it. But this is one of those things that I'm happy and have been encouraging to talk to my opponent or Jon about.
So let me put that in English and see if I'm following you.
Okay.
Basically what you're saying, if you were Jon Caldara, you would not have come to the defense of our one man, one woman constitutional amendment.
Right.
You would say, I agree with the 10th Circuit, even though they didn't look at Colorado's case, they looked at, was it Oklahoma's? I'm trying to remember.
It actually was Utah and Oklahoma.
That's good enough for me. That means it is unconstitutional here as well.
Well,
why wouldn't you defend the Colorado Constitution even if you don't agree with what it said?
It's not that I don't agree with it, Jon. I've defended lots of laws over the last 26 years that I either liked or didn't like. That's not the litmus test. What the Colorado Supreme Court and what the right litmus test is that is there a straight face legal argument you can make to say this is constitutional? And after 27 decisions in a row, my answer was no. It was an answer no after 13 in a row. And by the way, it's the same answer that Governor Christie of New Jersey and Governor Sandoval of Nevada have come to, that they're not defending their same-sex marriage laws.
Isn't there something to be said for saying, we likely think this is what the judge is going to rule, but I have a job to do this, and therefore there's no loose ends at all. You know, when the Colorado Supreme Court rules it unconstitutional, and then that goes back to the 10th Circuit, and they'll obviously, I think, rule against it, then can't you say, see, we did it right, it is completely now out of the books, not by my opinion, but by a court ruling?
Let me put that in context of something, Jon. We'd be denying the fundamental rights of a group of people for years. Last time in Amendment 2, it took 4.5 years for it to go through the U.S. Supreme Court. And at that point, it confirmed the state Supreme Court and said it was invidious, hateful discrimination. Let me put another context. Say there is a law dealing with freedom of speech that you can't give your opinion on television, and asking you, is it okay to sit around for 3 years and not say anything while we let this sort it through the court?
Yeah, those are called campaign finance laws.
Well, and that's one of those things that to me and to many others is that there really is no, like I said, equal protection argument to be made. I can't stand up in court and argue something that I don't believe in. I don't think have a good faith basis. So that's the difference. And Jon has a different opinion. He thinks it's a good faith basis.
Fair to say that if you were to win this election, would you reverse course on these?
Right.
Okay.
I have publicly stated I won't defend it because it doesn't have a basis.
Let me ask you about another case that's near and dear to me,
Yes,
which
sir.
is the TABOR case. That
Yes,
there
sir.
is a federal lawsuit against the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, saying that citizens didn't have a right to put it into the state constitution. The AG's office is defending that. It's
Yes.
our constitution. Do you continue with that fight, or do you treat that like the gay marriage fight?
No, it's a great question, Jon, and the answer is no. I would defend TABOR because there are legal arguments and constitutional arguments for it. So no, there's a legal basis to defend TABOR. I would defend TABOR.
Capital punishment has become a huge issue on this race. I don't know what exactly the AG's role in this, but tell me, is there an AG's role when it comes to capital punishment in Colorado, assuming that the law stays the way it is?
Yes.
And where are you on it?
Well, the official Attorney General's role is that you help out with the appeals, both in state and federal courts, because they go on for years. In the Nathan Dunlap case, the appeals have been going on for 20 years in both state and federal court. And the AG works in concert with the district attorney's office to represent the state on that. So there is an official role on that. I believe that the death penalty is appropriate in certain cases, aggravated cases. One of those is killing someone in the justice system, whether it's a witness like Rhonda Field's kids, whether it's Tom Clement, Department of Corrections, whether it's a prosecutor like Sean May in my office. If someone's facing murder charges or has a murder conviction and commits another murder, there's no consequence to them if there's not the death penalty. And I got to tell you, Sean May, Javad, Tom Clements were lives that have consequences and had meanings. And the other one is the aggravated rape and torture types cases, especially involving children. I think there are categories, and I didn't always feel this way. When I was a young person, I didn't think the death penalty was appropriate, but I got to be a prosecutor, and after years of seeing what's going on, I had a different viewpoint. I respect people that oppose the death penalty. It's just, I think it's appropriate given the way it's done here in Colorado and given the type of cases that it applies to.
What makes you uniquely qualified to take this job? Why, you're going to be asking for people's votes, and a lot of these seats after governor tend to go on a wave, this way or that way.
Yeah.
It's a Republican year, it's a Democratic year.
Yes.
Why should someone vote for you, particularly those people who might not be playing R versus D politics?
Sure. I think what the Attorney General does is an extension of what I've done for the last 26 years, which be an independent prosecutor. That you make a decision and you make hard decisions, and then the only politics involved is how do you explain it to the public that it was the right decision? How do you do it with transparency? And after doing this for 26 years, I've run the office as the Attorney General's chief deputy. And as the DA in Adams, I took things head on. We did more trials, or a higher percentage of trials, than just about any office in the state. But I also focused on keeping kids out of the justice system. And at the same time, my last 2 or 3 years was spent doing corruption investigation and prosecutions of my fellow offices, Democratic offices in the county, which you can imagine was not a lot of fun, prosecuting the people that you've known for years, but it was the right thing, and I would do it exactly the same if I had the same facts.
Isn't it a little different, though, prosecuting as a DA? You're putting bad guys behind jail. The AG's office is a whole different world of law enforcement, of legal enforcement, of you become basically the corporate attorney for the state of Colorado government. Isn't that a different set of tools?
Some new different subject areas, like water law and other stuff that I've learned over time and that I had to learn when I became the chief deputy. But in the sense of skill set, that you make the right decision based on the facts and the evidence, and you represent the people of Colorado, not just the agencies, as you said, but also the individual people. You're elected directly from the people. So in the sense, are there new subjects that you apply those skill set to? The answer is yes. Is a prosecutor used to someone who makes hard decisions, even though they may be unpopular at the time? The skill set is exactly the same for that. And that applies whether you're a lawyer, whatever section of the 8 sections of the Attorney General's office.
You were chief deputy under Salazar. Was that
The second term.
The second term. Was that a key part of what makes you qualified for this?
That's part of it, is that I do know the Attorney General's office and office-wide, but also a key part of it is actually being the guy, not being second fiddle or second person in line, being the guy that's had to make those hard decisions of making a decision what to file on a murder case, which public officials I'm going to investigate, which officers I'm going to charge, which officers I'm not going to charge. Those are all difficult decisions that face the Attorney General, like John Suthers of defending gun laws. In his own party, I imagine that wasn't a popular decision with some, but he said, hold it, there's a basis in law for these gun laws. I have to, as the Attorney General, defend it if there's a basis in law to do so. So I think that goes to show that that idea of you've had to make the hard decisions and you've got a track record of it, I think makes you eligible.
You'll be running against Cynthia Kaufman, who
Yes.
is currently the deputy AG. So tell me, you'll be running against a female candidate. Tell me, why do you hate women?
Well, I always say this, and you and I talked a little bit before the show, is that I think I'm the most qualified lawyer in the AG's race, but I'm the second best educated and second smartest lawyer in my family. My wife used to be a tax lawyer.
Actually, I want to talk about Cynthia. And
Sure.
You've probably worked with Cynthia in the past.
I do.
Remarkably
I've worked
capable
with Cynthia
woman.
for years.
What gives you an advantage over her? Why? You've got somebody now who's the deputy AG who can step in on day one, knows where all the bodies are buried. What makes you more qualified than Cynthia?
I think we bring different experiences to the table that I think gives us different visions. Like I said, I've been the guy that's had to make the hard decisions year after year in some very tough situations. And also I've been a prosecutor who makes decisions based on the facts and the law. I think that's different from looking at Cynthia's speeches and other things that she does, has talked about the position more as a political office and saying that she was going to push this agenda on these particular political issues. And so I think, A, I've sat in the seat and have a track record on the positions. B, as a prosecutor, criminal law obviously is something second nature to me after 26 years. And finally, I think the Attorney General's office is not a political position. I think it's a position we base your decisions on the fact and the evidence, and sometimes people like your decision, sometimes they don't, but that's the basis for your decision.
If you lost, would we be in bad hands with Cynthia?
I think we'd be in different hands. I like Cynthia. I've known her for years. And and I like her.
I mean,
think-
I want to see what you'd say about your opponent here. Is this a capable AG candidate? Not as good as you, of course, but will Colorado be well served?
Yeah, I think Cynthia's a good person. I think she's an able person. I just think we'd, based on our different experiences, would take the office in different places.
Well, give me some meat to that. All right, so what would that look like? So you say that she has a different political agenda. So at the end of the day, after, let's say, your first term in office, what would that difference look like?
Well, if you look at our prospective speeches at the nominations back in April, I mean, one of Cynthia's comments was that if she's the AG, she's going to join with the other Republican attorney generals and sue the federal government on this issue and this issue and this issue, okay? I don't think that's the AG's office. I think I'm there to fix issues, not to file lawsuits, even though I'm the one that's the litigator in this election. And I saw Jon do it, Ken do it all the time, is when Ken got elected, he was the only Democrat. So to get anything done, we had to reach across the table, either the governor or Republican-controlled legislature. I think that's a good thing. And I think unfortunately, it's only gotten more politicized in the last 10 years.
John Suthers joined a lot of other states in suing on Obamacare.
Yes.
You would not have done that.
Well, since he lost at the state Supreme Court, in the U.S. Supreme Court, and Justice Roberts wrote the opinion that said he was wrong, yes, I would not have filed the lawsuit.
Does that mean you wouldn't stand up to the federal government on some of these
whenever
issues? Where would you and where wouldn't you?
I'd stand up to and I said this 2 weeks ago at the Water Congress in Snowmass. I will stand up to the federal government when the federal government is infringing on state rights and in areas that are controlled by state law. But it's better to find out areas how to work cooperatively.
People want to get involved in the campaign for you. Where do they go? What do they do?
Go to our website. It's quickforcolorado.com.
Quick for Colorado.
Yes, I'm for Colorado. I'm not saying who isn't, but I'm for Colorado. And they can contact us through there.
Don, best of luck in the campaign.
Thank you, John.
You so much.
Thanks for.
Stay tuned.